church much, so they're not familiar with what happens there. I always use this example, but it's really true. 85% of the people in this country consider themselves people of faith, yet you see hardly any stories in the news about it. 55% of the people consider themselves people of sports fandom, and broken down in various ways. There's a whole section every day to sports. There's one page in my Washington Post every week devoted to religion. It's their worldview. Their worldview is concerns of conservatives don't matter. Concerns of liberals do. And you see it in all the Trump nominees. If they wanted to attack Betty DeVos, they could have done it by going after her from Michelle Malkin. Michelle Malkin was critical of DeVos on the issue of Common Core. Did you see that coming up in any of the debates? No. Why? Because that wasn't the liberal talking point. So they went after, you're against public education. So that's the talking point. Well, they lost. If they had actually bothered to do research and discover, I'm neutral on DeVos, but I mean, somebody I respect a lot, Michelle Malkin, had issues with her. So that, if you flip it around, if you've got a liberal nominee and a prominent liberal has issues with them, that might make news because the liberals will hear it. The media people are, Jesse Jackson's bothered by this. Oh my gosh. Or the LGBT community is bothered by this. We can't have that. And so that's the media perspective is so skewed toward their worldview. They work with liberals, they date liberals, they're friends with liberals, they marry liberals. That sounds like a gross exaggeration until you start digging and you realize Chuck Todd's wife is a Democratic consultant. She was working for Jim Webb when he had Jim Webb on TV. Why was that allowed? Because it's their whole world. If they got rid of all the conflicts of interest involving the left, they wouldn't be able to report. They flat out wouldn't. It's Chuck Todd, who used to intern for Senator Harkin, really a neutral source. Is George Stephanopoulos, who used to work for the Clintons, a neutral source? No.
Right, and they're holding the keys to the kingdom as far as ratings and exposure for topics and issues, and they're opinion makers, absolutely right. But let me just flip the coin for a second with you, Dan. How much of the Trump administration is turning this up and ratcheting this up to 11 against the media, hurting them when they make unforced errors and kind of waste political capital on inauguration attendance, or don't use the right word with Bowling Green like Kellyanne Conway did? How much of this escalation is attributable to Trump turning up this war against the media?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. I think basically there's no winning for Trump with the media. Not just at this point, but frankly, months ago, they didn't want to see him win. They did everything within their power, reasonably speaking, to stop him from getting elected. Ever since the Rutenberg column on the New York Times front page back in August, when he said, pretty much, how do you cover somebody neutrally when they're this? He was calling for the media to not be neutral, and they weren't. Our last 12 weeks coverage of the election, Donald Trump's media coverage was 91% negative. I don't think we've done a tally because there's just been so much coverage attacking him, but I would say it's a lot higher than 91%. So, what could Donald Trump today? What could Donald Trump do to appease the media? Well, as far as I can tell, even if he resigned, he'd give the job to Mike Pence. He'd still hate him. If he fired Mike Pence and brought in Hillary Clinton, they'd still blame him for everything he had done up to now. There's no winning. I think Donald Trump realizes that they're the enemy of his administration because they are trying to overturn a free election in America, and that's exactly what they want to do.
Well, I'll tell you this, folks. If you want to find out more about the left's agenda through the media, you got to go to newsbusters.org and look at the variety of stories on there looking at, media, Hollywood, all the tools that the left have at their disposal to kind of change your thought and change your opinion on topics. NewsBusters gives you the straight skinny, guys. I love it. Like I always say when I'm with Dan, it's in my daily blog roll every morning when I wake up. It's one of the first sites I check, and I love the content on it. Pal, thanks for coming on again. And anything else going on with NewsBusters that you want to let people know about?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously we covered the Super Bowl, but I think going forward, one of the things I want people to start watching is paying attention to entertainment TV. Look at how much entertainment TV is being manipulated right now. We saw the announcement of the Super Bowl. Oh, well, Trump's got elected, so what is Netflix doing? They're launching a TV show of The Handmaid's Tale, which is this wildly pro-abortion, anti-pro-life TV.
Right, Hulu's doing that. Hulu's doing that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, that's what you can expect. You can expect show after show after show to slip in attacks on Trump, attacks on conservatives. They say they realize that, we weren't reaching all the people. That's a lie. They're relaunching All in the Family. They're relaunching the most anti-conservative show in the history of television, and they say they understand that they weren't reaching conservatives. This is the fraud. So many people in the American media are just outright frauds because they pretend that they don't have an agenda, and then when their agenda works, they celebrate it. Remember Will and Grace? That's also coming back. Will and Grace. Oh well, we helped. Joe Biden gives credit to the media for helping, for Will and Grace, helping win it over gay marriage in this country. And the media take a huge victory lap. Yeah, we did that. And then you turn around and say, okay, you claim that you won with this. How come you won't take any responsibility for the rise in killings in our country? For the serial killers who turn on the dozen or different serial killer shows you've had on in the last several years. For the shooters who go out and murder kids in schools because they turn on TV and they see you doing it. Oh, well, we didn't do that. They're not learning anything from our shows. They try to do the Jon Stewart thing where he says, whatever he says, you can't pin him down. He's either a comedian, in which case, then he can make jokes about conservatives, and if you say he's doing that, he's actually political, then he turns, no, I'm a comedian. And then if he gets political, then he makes jokes, and they're not funny. So, well, I'm a politician, political guy. It's not a double standard. It's one standard. Everything they do is right. Everything we do is wrong.
Well, the war rages on. Batten down the hatches for 2017. Dan, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you again next month, pal.
Sounds great, man. You take care.
The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks Good evening, to Rev. You, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, dwindling, they do not want him dwindling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a contortionist. Intravenous fluids and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics. I have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniski Juniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, when Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bibbin. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt, there's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Let's get back to our show indeed. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines. Thanks for listening to this week's show. Check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of the show that we normally do live Tuesdays at 10 p.m. on Spreaker, you could check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC in beautiful Jasper, Florida. Love that station out there. Hope everybody in our listening area in Florida and Georgia along the Panhandle are doing well with the storms that are coming at you. Stay safe. 107.5 FM territory. Stay safe over there, huh? Especially you guys too also. WDDQ in Adele, Georgia, 92.1. Hopefully you're hunkered down and surviving the storms. Also, everyone in Carrollton, Georgia and WLBB land, 1330 AM. We're with you here up north and hope that you guys are doing well. All of you part, of course, of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. Also, you can check us out at KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. You can check them out at lanterns.buzz. And if you miss any of the rebroadcasts, storm-wise or for whatever reason you may have, you can always check us out on demand as a podcast. We're available on iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM, SoundCloud. You can discover us on Google Play Music, and of course, the mighty, mighty iHeartRadio. Thanks for listening to the show, guys. We've been having a blast. I want to thank Dan Gainor for coming on the show. Did a great interview with him about this escalation of the media. I'd be remiss if I didn't touch upon this week the oral argument in the Ninth Circuit. You know me, I'm an attorney. I got to throw that in your face every week, right, guys? The oral argument between the state of Washington and the federal government that occurred at the Ninth Circuit. People have been asking me my opinion about this through my social media and things, and I listened to the argument that happened this week, and while, as we record this, we don't know the exact decision, I'm going to try to do my best impression of a psychic right now, and see how this is going to come down. For the past generation, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has been a very, very liberal court. The decision here is going to come down to a couple different things. First thing is, no judge likes to be told that something that another branch of government has done is not reviewable by them. They're going to take exception to that. The other thing that they're going to take exception to is the broad generalization of this ban that affects every citizen in the nation and incoming and outgoing immigrants to and from that don't necessarily have constitutional rights. So I think it's going to go down like this, especially knowing the makeup of the justices, Friedland, Canby, and Clifton. It's going to be a 2-1 decision. You have 2 very liberal justices on the bench and 1 moderate. And if you listen to the transcript of the audio recording, you'll see who's who. And what you end up having is maybe a modification of the preliminary and temporary injunction. Depending upon what you think of it, is it a TRO? Is it a preliminary injunction? It all depends on how you view the court's treatment of the request back in Seattle. That was part of the controversy in the oral argument. Is this the proper forum for discussing, a stay? Should it have been a mandamus argument? All very hyper-technical terms that put form over substance in a lot of effects, but can be important when looking at this, because a decision on the merits versus a decision on a temporary restraining order are 2 very different things. So, in consideration of that, I think the court's going to kind of split the baby